Welcome to another edition of Politics Run. I'm Egberto, Willies, your host. Thank you so kindly for being with us one more time. Today, we are honored to have former Congressman Joe Walsh of Illinois and now host of White Flag with Joe Walsh. Joe, how are you doing this morning?
Egberto, it's great to be with you. Thanks for having me on.
Well, you know, in the past, the truth of the matter is I would always have had you on, even though we are at the polar ends of the spectrum with regards to political ideology, philosophy, etc. But the one thing I respect is a strong intellectual conversation on our beliefs, etc. If we're honest, we're in a country where we should all live together and get along. And on my program, I bring folks from all over, and we actually enjoy each other. So in that light, I want to say, first of all, thank you for appearing on Politics Done Right. And secondly, how are you doing?
I'm tired. Look, it's great to be with you. And I love what you're doing because America needs to do this. I'll watch my language. We're so damn divided. We don't talk across the divide. I used to be a really divisive political guy. I'm trying to make up for that. So it's been a wild journey. But yeah, look, my friend, I'm tired because right now I wake up every day and I do all I can to make sure Donald Trump is not ever back in the White House.
You know, what I find interesting in what you said, in that, we all live in the same country. We all have to eventually land the same place. What I like to say is we have to give people a place to land. There are some people that are so committed to what they're doing, even when they realize that they need to change, that they don't have a place to land. So they stay in that comfort zone. Yeah. One of the reasons I have a lot of respect for people like you and from people from all spectrums that make a change when they see a change is necessary is that it takes a hell of a lot of courage. It takes a lot of courage. So I want to ask you, when you made that change to say, look, to hell with parties, I am looking out for America. Tell me, what was that like, the response that you got on the right side of the aisle? Because you were a big Tea Party guy, man.
Yeah. No, look, it was really scary when I almost 6 years ago now came out and said, I oppose Donald Trump. When I publicly said that, I knew that I was taking a blowtorch to my career. I knew that I was ending my career as a Republican. I knew I could never get elected again as a Republican. I knew I was going to take a big financial hit, and I knew that I would get threats and hate every day and every week. So at one level, that's a really tough thing to do, right? Which is why my former colleagues in Congress and in the conservative media world that I come from haven't done that. It's hard to throw it all away. But in a way, and you'll get this, it was a really easy decision because I couldn't live with myself if I didn't do that.
That is so true. I want to read you something that you wrote because I think, well, actually, it's great. I think this is what's so important. And let me just tell the audience, first of all, I don't agree with everything the brother said, but I tell you what, I respect the way he said it and what he said. And it goes as follows. I'm going to try to be quick with it. It said, President Donald Trump and I agree on big issues. We both believe strongly that illegal immigration threatens our national security and strains our government. He made building a wall on the southern border a focus of his 2016 national campaign. I was for a border wall before that election. He pledged to help unemployed workers in dilapidated manufacturing towns get back onto their feet. The very poor people who live in my backyard in places such as Gary, Indiana, Decatur, Illinois, and who called into my show to talk about an America that wasn't a great for them as it used to be. Trump complained about a political system that was out of touch with ordinary folks and the promise to get rid of fancy assholes who ran it. That was all great. It was part of a reason that I voted for him for disruption, but that vote wasn't worth it if it means having a president who lies, bullies, abuses his power, places his vanity above the public interest, runs his administration like a cult, manipulates the laws of his personal benefit, befriends dictators while disavowing his own intelligence community, and fails in so many other ways, having nothing to do with being a member of one political party or another, to be a responsible steward of his office. Whether we intended or not, this package of a little good and a ton of bad is what I and nearly 63 million other Americans voted into office. I believe now that this support was misplaced. I want to explain to those 63 million why. I don't believe I can do it by behaving like Trump, and I wouldn't want to either, by name calling, mischaracterizing, exaggerating, and pitting people against each other. After all, if I truly believe that Donald Trump is a con man, and I do, then I myself was conned. I have to own that. But by owning it, I hope to lead others to the same realizations, not by making them feel guilty about a politician they backed, but by helping them understand the reality of who that politician is, what he's done, and what history suggests he'll continue to do. That was in your book titled F Silence, F Silence, calling Trump out for the cultish, moronic authoritarian that he is. I mean, that is in the beginning of your book and summarized everything.
Well, by the way, thank you for reading that, because I haven't heard those words for a while. And what jumped out at me is this. I was a disruptive politician. I went to Washington in 2010 because, look, and I still feel this way, I think our politics is broken. I'm sick of both parties. I think we need major reform. I don't think politicians listen to average white, black, and brown folk out there. I still believe all of that. So, like, I supported Trump in 2016 because I wanted disruption. And Trump's voters were my voters. So they wanted the same thing. I was guilty, though, for not paying attention to what a bad, evil, horrible person he is. There are good disruptors and bad disruptors. He was a bad disruptor. I made a mistake voting for him, and I'm trying to spend the rest of my life making up for that. But I understood why people were gravitating toward him. And because I come from that world, and I still engage with Trump supporters every day, I will never demean them, and I'll always help them try to get out of the cult like I got out of the cult.
You know, today it's great that you said the word cult, right? Today on my morning show, 6 o'clock at KPFT 90.1 FM, one of the callers called me out for calling all Trump supporters a cult, and I stepped back a while and I said, no. Not all Trump supporters are cult members. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I am not a fan of Joe Biden, but I will be voting for Joe Biden because of what I think policies are that I can get. When I say I am talking about, we can get under that domain. And I told my audience that several times. And one came back and said, well, Egberto, we could say the same thing. We know Trump is a bad guy. We don't like Trump either, but we want to vote for Trump because of some of the underlying policies that we like that we can get under him. So I had to step back and say, wait a minute. I opened that door for him to say, even as I don't like this candidate, I still support underneath. In reading your piece, and some of what you said, I think you have neutralized that argument by saying, but I know it inside, but coming from you, I think it's more effective because you can say, I've been there. I know the kinds of policies that Trump supports that I also support. But as your statement said, it's not worth it. Go ahead, please.
No, and you're right. Look, because I come from Trump world, they're not all cult members, but many of them are, and I'll tell them they are. And you're a cult member if Like if you can say to yourself, and some Trump supporters say this to me, Joe, I know he's a bad guy and I know he lies all the time, but the Democrats are evil and he's going after them, blah, blah, blah. I disagree with that, but I understand that guy's making a rational decision. But when a Trump supporter can't acknowledge to me that he's a bad man, that means he's a cult member. Like when I did the stupidest thing I've ever done in my life, when I ran for president against Trump, Egberto, I was in Iowa at a Trump rally, and there were people going in line in Des Moines, Iowa to go into the rally. And I asked 40 people in line that day in Iowa, has Donald Trump ever told a lie? And all 40 of them told me Trump has never lied. Now, if you're a Trump supporter and you tell me Trump has never lied, then that's cultish behavior.
Yeah, it is amazing. There are a lot of, look, I mean, on all sides, people have a tendency to like the person that they're supporting, and they sort of deify more so than necessary the person. But there's a special thing with this person. Now, if you're gonna if you're gonna speak to the audience at large, what are the specific reasons that you would give that makes Trump a clear and present danger if he were to become president of the United States again?
Trump doesn't believe in democracy, and he believes he's above the law. End of story. Those two things are anathema to America. He would like to be a dictator. He would try. That is a direct threat to this country. He truly does believe the law does not apply to him. Again, a king, a dictator. We don't have that here. And I need to continually remind people, in the wonderful history of this country, we've only had one sitting president who lost an election and refused to concede, refused to do that one beautiful American thing, participate in the peaceful transfer of power. And then Trump went even one step further. He did whatever he could to try to overthrow that election. There's no greater threat to our democracy than that.
Now, unfortunately, we tend to consider ourselves the bastion of democracy. How does what does that do to the rest of the world? Those people who we're telling them that they should follow our lead, the democratic lead. How does that come across to the rest of the world?
We're the world's oldest democracy, and I think the rest of the world right now is worried about us. Look, I understand it, and Egberto, I know you do too. Trump supporters want a certain kind of America back. This is what they tell me. They've given up on democracy. Like they no longer believe the democratic process can get them their America back. So they're perfectly willing to say, and they've said this to me, Joe, I don't care if Trump's a dictator. He's going to get me back. Boom, 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 boom.
Okay, let me stop you there, Joe. What is that kind of America? Articulate that for me. I mean, I think that's important for everybody to hear.
That kind of America is like a 1954 America where men married women, women married men. There were two genders. You could say Merry Christmas. The plant that you worked at was right there in your town. America was a whiter country. We were a more Christian country. You know, kind of a longing for that kind of America back. Again, I don't demean these folks. There's a lot, they want that back, but I go after them because they've abandoned democracy to get that back.
Do you think there is some way we can get to folks to tell them they can have that America they want in a microcosm? Nobody's stopping them from associating with whomever they want to associate it with, or doing whatever they want to do. If they want to isolate themselves in that type of America, shouldn't we be able to explain to them that you can, if you want to live in that America, you can create a free country allows you to create whatever sphere you want to create. Isn't that right? And are they open to hear that?
Yeah, no, yes, but it all depends. Egberto, it all depends on who the messenger is. Like, these folks aren't going to listen to anybody on CNN or MSNBC, and I go on those networks all the time. Yeah. They're not going to listen to Democrats. They're not going to listen to Joe Biden. They'll listen to people like me. It's got to be people from their own side who say this to them. Look, you don't have to embrace men marrying men or women marrying women, but you have to, in a free society, you have to accept that there are differences and that other people believe it's okay that men can marry men and women can marry women. And it's the law of the land. You have to be tolerant. We need messengers on their side who can tell them, you've got to be tolerant of other views. You don't have to embrace them, but you've got to be tolerant of them. And the other thing I need to teach these folks is immigration is good. We want people to come here, white, black, and brown. I don't give a damn what color you are if you want to become an American. I think we need to go head after that issue with these folks.
Well, one of the reasons I wanted you on, and because, like I said, I bring audiences from every spectrum, and I think you can reach people that I have a very hard time reaching to because of several factors, both the way I look and also the policies that I support. But again, I think when folks like yourself, myself, and others who have a platform can show that we can talk to each other civilly, whether we agree on 80%. And this is what's interesting, Joe. I go ahead and
agree on more than you think.
That's my point, right? I sit down in a Starbucks. I live in a very red area. I'm in Houston, but the part of Houston I chose to live is a very red, a very white area. Okay, and it had a lot to do with the school for my daughter. And when I go into a Starbucks, all the people that come in there are Trump supporters or whatever, and we have a great time. Not only that, they're agreeing with the things that we talk about. 90% of the things we're talking about. So if my car is parked out there, I can guarantee you a whole lot of Trumpsters are coming in there just to shoot the bull with me. And they have fun. We have to establish that. I mean, I'm doing it on an individual basis and a host basis. You are doing it in the way we have to try to establish it. And I think another good example is to show folks that, again, a Joe Walsh and an Egberto can actually sit down and say, hey, we have more in common than you believe, but also we can have differences and not really.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. So right now, politically, we're at each other's throats in this country. We are dangerously divided. I come from two worlds where we're incentivized to divide people. In politics, the more extreme you are, the better your chances of getting elected. I was a right-wing radio media guy. The more extreme you are, the better your ratings. So we incentivize division. But I'll tell you, Egberto, like I'm going to travel the country, and I think we need to ask Americans head on the question: do you want to stay together as one country, one people? Now, I think most Americans would say yes. I think there'd be a lot of Americans that would say, screw it, Joe, let's just break up. But if we want to stay together as one people, then I think it's up to us, the people, to do certain things that we've stopped doing.
I agree so wholeheartedly. And I do think most people want to stick together. They just don't know how to.
Yes.
And I think with having good leadership, having people that are really engaged in doing this, I think that's the answer. That's what I dedicated my life to. And I noticed that that's sure as hell what you've dedicated your life to.
Wow, but only, Egberto, thank you for what you do. I was a bad guy politically, so this is my penance. I'm doing this because this is my penance. I was a bad guy. So I'm trying to make up for that. So I'm happy to be joining you.
Yeah, but let me tell you something, Joe. Like I always say in the things that I do, we have to have a place for everybody to land.
Amen.
Everybody, and myself, yourself, everybody, we have to have a place to land. So anyway, I always end my discussion this way, Joe. What would you have liked me to ask you that I didn't?
If I wasn't doing this, what would I be doing?
Tell me.
I'd be on a piece of land about 100 acres with not another human being in sight. I'd be living with 20 dogs, a bunch of tequila, and I'd spend the rest of my life just reading books and relaxing with my dogs.
I can't top that, man. I can't top that. Folks, we've been with former Congressman Joe Walsh of Illinois, now the host of White Flag with Joe Walsh. And folks, the book is from the previous cycle, but I think everybody needs to go out and pick up a copy. By the way, first of all, we weren't on today for the book. In my research, I found the book. Okay. And when I read that passage, I said, wow, I think this is something folks need to read. F Silence, calling Trump out. Okay, check it out. I'll have it in the blog post and along this. Thank you so kindly, Joe, for having been on Politics Done Right.
Egberto, thank you.
We spend a lot of time deconstructing the news, trying to parse it into a form that everybody can understand. We try to find those little nitpicks where it flies above the fray, etc. If you really like these videos that we do, I want to ask a big favor. Please go ahead. Number one, subscribe to our channel. And number two, please join if you can. Thank you so kindly for watching. Keep watching. Please remember to share. We must populate the entire internet with our progressive message, a message that we know is what most Americans say that they want. So help us, please join.